I still remember the night it all began, the night the prairie sky stretched endlessly above us, heavy with stars, and the silence of the land pressed against my heart like a weight I couldn't shake. We were young then, too young to be alone, but life on the frontier doesn't wait for you to be ready. It tests you, strips you down, and sometimes, gives you love in the most unexpected way. Our parents were gone. Taken suddenly, one after another, by the fever that swept through the valley that spring. There was no one left to guide us, no one to put food on the table or mend the fences. Just me, my little brother, and the cabin they left behind. I was barely 18, but I had to step into shoes far too big for me. The nights were the hardest when the coyotes howled and the shadows felt thicker than my courage. I would sit by the fire, my brother asleep in the loft, and I would whisper to myself, "Hold on, you have to hold on." But the truth was, I was scared. Scared of losing everything we had, scared of failing the only family I had left. And that's when he came into my life. His name was Luke. A rancher's son from the far side of the valley, broad-shouldered and quiet, with eyes that seemed to hold both the sorrow of the land and the strength to bear it. I'd seen him a handful of times before, riding past with cattle or working the fields. But after our parents died, he began to appear at our cabin, sometimes with a sack of flour, sometimes with fresh milk, sometimes with nothing but his steady presence. At first, I bristled at his kindness. Pride can be a heavy burden, and mine was stubborn. "We can manage," I told him once, clutching the bucket of milk he'd brought. My hands were trembling, though I tried to hide it. "I know you can," he said softly. "But you don't have to do it all alone." Those words stuck with me, like a seed planted deep in the soil of my heart. The days turned into weeks, and Luke kept coming back. He'd help mend the roof, chop the wood, or fix a broken hinge on the barn door. But it wasn't just his strength that helped me, it was the way he looked at me, like he saw past the weary girl I was and into the woman I was trying to become. At night, when the prairie winds howled and the cabin walls creaked, I would think of his calm voice, his steady hands, and suddenly the darkness didn't feel quite so heavy. Still, life wasn't easy. One evening, a storm rolled across the valley, the kind that splits the sky with lightning and rattles the earth with thunder. Our cabin roof began to leak, water spilling down onto the floor, and my brother woke up crying. I tried to hold it all together, but I sank to my knees, tears mixing with the rain as I whispered, "I can't do this anymore." And that's when the door burst open. Luke stood there, soaked to the bone, his face lit by a flash of lightning. He crossed the room in 2 strides and pulled me up into his arms. For the first time since my parents died, I let myself lean on someone else. I felt the storm pounding against the cabin walls, but inside his embrace, I found a shelter stronger than wood or stone. From that night on, something shifted between us. We weren't just neighbors, or friends bound by circumstance, we were 2 souls holding each other up in a world that had tried to break us. I remember one morning, the sun rising over the golden prairie, when Luke showed me how to ride his horse. My brother laughed as the wind tangled my hair, and for a moment, I felt free from grief, free from fear, free to feel the warmth of something more than survival. It wasn't long before whispers stirred in town. Folks noticed Luke spending time at our cabin, noticed the way his hand lingered near mine, the way his eyes followed me across a crowded room. Some wagged their tongues, saying it wasn't proper, 2 young people alone without parents. But out here, on the edge of the world, propriety couldn't put food on the table or keep the cold out. Love, real, raw, unpolished love, was the only thing that mattered. One evening, as the sun bled red across the horizon, Luke and I sat on the porch. My brother had gone to bed early, worn out from chasing fireflies. The air was warm, heavy with the scent of wild sage. Luke took my hand, his thumb tracing the calluses that hardship had carved into my skin. "You're stronger than you know," he murmured. I looked into his eyes and, for the first time, let the words tumble out. "I don't want to be strong alone anymore." He pulled me close then, and beneath that endless western sky, we kissed a kiss not born of desperation, but of hope. It was gentle and fierce all at once, a promise carved into the silence of the prairie. Life didn't suddenly become easy after that. We still had fields to tend, fences to mend, and a younger brother to raise. But everything felt different. The loneliness was gone. The fear was lighter. Because when the world tried to strip us bare, we had found something more enduring than sorrow, love born from loss, love that grew in the cracks of hardship. Now, years later, I sit by that same porch and watch the prairie winds ripple through the grass. My brother is grown, with a family of his own. And Luke, he is still here, still steady, still the man who walked through the storm and showed me I didn't have to carry it all alone. When I look back on those days, on the nights we spent without parents, on the hunger, the fear, the whispered prayers, I realize something. What happened to us was more than survival. It was more than comfort. It was more than love as most people know it. It was the kind of love forged in fire, tested by storms, and rooted in the wide, wild heart of the West.